I'm talking talk about something that's very off topic, but I was just sort of thinking of it, and that's the whole Joanne Lees and her boyfriend shenanigan. I may know a bit more of the story than the average Joe. I do know for a fact there was a lot of lies over in England about it. The British police come out and said they talked to the Australian police, and they had confirmation that Joanne Lees was a suspect. She was never a suspect, not even once. It just goes to show how full of it authorities are. We actually had a whole documentary on the amount of differences in the British story that the British public were told and the story that we were told. And it was a documentary that turned up on TV. And I may have worked with someone whose brother's mate knew this Murdoch bloke who was accused of the murder and now jailed for it. He knew a bit about him. Quite a few people did around that area. He was basically a drug runner, but the police knew he'd run drugs into mining towns because miners are reasonably wealthy, plus, you know, some of them have a few, you know, have drugs, just smoke a bit of marijuana usually and stuff like that. Not always, but if they've done it in their home life, well, they sort of wouldn't mind a bit when they're on the mines. So what he does is he smuggles it in to the town, but he can't just sort of walk in there himself because everybody knows who he is and what he does. So he gets backpackers in the area to go in, and he'll have somebody in the town who's his actual dealer, and he'll give it to the backpackers, and they'll go in and drop it off to his dealer in the town. Then they'll pick up the money, the profits, the sale of the drugs, or the drugs that they've just been handed, or the previous sales of the last batch of drugs. These backpackers will be given that money and told to come back out and meet this Murdoch bloke and hand the money over. So they go in with the drugs, drop the drugs off, get the money, come back out and give Murdoch the money. Now, Joanne and her boyfriend thought they were going to be a bit smart. They were going to pull a Swiftie. I mean, maybe with a massive population and, all that in England, you can sort of merge in with everybody else and do stuff like that and rip people off without being noticed and never see them again because of the large population and the high density of living and stuff like that. We're talking about the outback here. We're talking about Crocodile Dundee country. They tried to do it out there. Big, big, big mistake. They were bloody stupid. Quite simply, they're dealing with somebody who, some of these outback characters, they are literally like Bear Grylls in the way they can just sleep under the stars, shoot a kangaroo and eat it. They know exactly what plants are edible, what things, because they grew up in the area. And not only that, they usually know Aboriginal tribes that tell them, yes, that is edible. And they grew up as a kid around this sort of stuff. They know exactly what they can do. They're very, very hardy people, extremely hardy. They make me look pretty wimpy. And quite simply, these blokes know that if you're trying to get out of a town, there's only one road, or there may be two. But in that van, you're going to get bogged at this particular area. So you're going to either need a semi to get you through, or you'll be stuck there, and then you'll have to wait for someone else to, help you out. So you're going to be most likely stuck there for at least a day before somebody else helps you, or and they know what they can do. They know all the extra little backtracks that join one road to another to give them a shortcut. And they were dumb enough to think they could rip him off. And that basically is the word on the grapevine as to what the real story was there. And of course he took his vengeance. But for the love of God, this country runs very different from England. If you come over here, keep that in mind. It's very isolated. You know, people can get killed out there, and, you know, not be found. There's plenty of cases. I read of one literally only a couple of months ago. It was about, 6 or 8 weeks ago, I read in the paper. The temperature in these areas is extreme. Now, as locals can, you know, some of them can hack it. You know, they say about some of these places, they're basically not a place for white man. Black man can hack it, but white man, oh gosh. I heard of this story, it was in the newspaper actually, of 2 blokes who had their 4-wheel drive. They were checking watering points for sheep and cows and whatnot, to, you know, see that there's water coming out. It was, you know, over 50 degrees Celsius, and, or around about 50 degrees, something like that. Anyway, they were driving along and they got bogged. Instead of staying in the car with air conditioning running, they had very little water with them. They got out and they proceeded to walk for several kilometres. It was something like 14 kilometres they had to walk back to the homestead. One was dead and the other was probably half an hour, 20 minutes off death 2 hours later because of the heat of the sun. The one who was alive, his eyes sort of shrunk into the back of his head. And what that is it's the you're losing water in your brain. And he said all he could hear was the sound of his heartbeat. And, you know, that's one of the things that obviously happens when you're severely dehydrated. The other bloke was dead. And this is within 2 hours of leaving an air-conditioned vehicle and trying to walk back. So it's a dangerous area. And furthermore, blooming tourists thinking they can roll locals in their own country in a way out, back of nowhere scenario like that is just bloody stupid. And they, you know, one of them paid for with their life, and Joanne is lucky she wasn't killed as well, to be quite honest. But yeah.